First contact through music. The first sign that humanity wasn't alone came through headphones at the Greenwich Observatory's Acoustic Research Lab. Dr. Sarah Chen sat bolt upright in her chair, her cold tea forgotten as she adjusted the frequency filters again. After 15 years of studying deep space acoustics, she knew this wasn't ordinary cosmic background radiation. The signal pulsed with a distinct pattern, not just mathematical sequences, but something more. Something musical. As she isolated the frequencies, her hands trembled. The pattern followed the same mathematical ratios found in music across every human culture, the universal constants of harmony. "Director Matthews," she called out, her voice echoing through the quiet lab. "You need to hear this." Thomas Matthews, director of the Deep Space Listening Initiative, hurried over. At 65, he'd spent his career searching for patterns in cosmic noise. As Sarah played the processed signal, his eyes widened. It's like a symphony," he whispered. The signal contained layers of mathematical patterns woven together like a complex musical composition. But beneath the mathematics was something else: emotion. Fear. Urgency. A call for help. Within hours, the lab was filled with experts from around the world. Mathematicians, musicians, physicists, and linguists worked around the clock to decode the message. Dr. Chen led the effort, combining her unique background in both advanced mathematics and musical theory. "Look at this sequence," she explained to the assembled team, pointing to a visualization of the signal. "It's not just prime numbers or pi, it's following the same ratios we see in musical overtones. They're speaking to us through universal harmonics." After 3 days of non-stop work, they cracked the first layer of the message. An alien fleet of 300 ships was trapped in a region of space near the Oort cloud, caught in a deadly web of gravitational waves. Their advanced navigation systems, designed for normal space, were useless in the chaotic gravitational currents. "But why reach out to us?" Matthews asked during an emergency UN briefing. "We barely have ships that can reach Mars." Sarah stood before the assembled leaders, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Because they detected our music," she explained. "Their scans of Earth picked up our broadcasts, our songs. They recognize that we understand something fundamental about harmony and wave patterns, something their civilization somehow lost in their pursuit of pure technology." The alien message became clearer as they decoded more layers. Their civilization had evolved to rely entirely on quantum computers and artificial intelligence for navigation. But in this region of space, where gravitational waves created unpredictable patterns, their systems failed to find safe passages through the turbulence. Earth's response was unprecedented. Instead of just sending mathematical equations or technical data, they sent back music. Bach, Mozart, jazz improvisations, indigenous songs from every continent, along with their mathematical analyses showing how human music mapped to universal wave patterns. The aliens' reply came faster this time, their message clearer as they adapted to human communication methods. They were amazed. In all their advanced technology, they had never considered using harmonic analysis to understand gravitational waves. "We need your help," the alien commander's message translated. "Our ships are running out of power. We cannot map safe passages through this region. Your understanding of wave harmonics might be our only hope." Sarah stood at her window that night, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an advanced civilization waited for help from a species they had probably considered primitive. But sometimes the most profound solutions come from the simplest understanding of universal patterns. The next morning, as governments around the world debated how to respond, Sarah gathered her team. "We're going to teach them how to hear the music of gravity," she announced. "We'll turn those gravitational waves into sound." As humanity prepared for its first major galactic rescue mission, no one knew they were about to change how the entire galaxy thought about problem solving. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations can forget the fundamental patterns that connect everything in the universe, patterns that humanity had preserved through their music. The greatest symphony in human history was about to begin, and its conductor would be a musicologist who never lost sight of the harmony in everything. Earth's response to the aliens was simple: "We hear you. We're coming to help. Follow the music." The sound of space. The main auditorium of the European Space Agency had been transformed into what looked like a cross between a concert hall and a physics lab. Banks of computers lined the walls, while in the center stood a massive holographic display showing the gravitational wave patterns trapping the alien fleet. But what caught everyone's attention was the array of musical instruments arranged in a semicircle around the display. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled team of Earth's finest musicians and physicists. "What we're attempting has never been done before," she explained, adjusting the hologram to show the complex web of gravitational distortions. "We're going to turn this death trap into a symphony." The alien commander, who had introduced themselves as Zar-El, appeared on the main screen. Their crystalline features showed clear signs of stress. "Our remaining power reserves will last another 30 days, they reported. "After that, our life support systems will begin to fail." "Show me your sensor data again," Sarah requested. As the aliens transmitted their readings, she fed them into the new system her team had developed. The room filled with sound, a haunting, discordant melody that made several people wince. "That's what your gravitational maze sounds like," she explained to Zar-El. "Each wave, each distortion, has its own frequency. Together, they create this chaos. But in chaos, humans have always found patterns." Maya Patel, a renowned Indian classical musician, stepped forward. Her fingers moved across her sitar, matching the eerie tones of the converted gravitational waves. "There's a rhythm to it," she noted. "Like a raga gone wrong, but still following certain rules." Dr. James Wong, the quantum physicist who had helped develop the conversion system, nodded excitedly. "The gravitational waves aren't random. They're interfering with each other in predictable patterns, just like sound waves." For the next several hours, the unusual assembly worked together. Musicians identified patterns in the cosmic cacophony while physicists mapped them to gravitational movements. Classical composers worked alongside astrophysicists, jazz musicians collaborated with quantum theorists. "Here," called out Diego Martinez, a Chilean composer, pointing to a particular sequence. "This pattern repeats every few minutes. It's like a rhythm section maintaining the beat." Sarah fed the observation into their models. The hologram shifted, revealing a potential safe corridor through one section of the gravitational storm. "Commander Zar-El," she called out. "We're sending you coordinates for a test." The aliens dispatched a small probe along the suggested route. Everyone held their breath as they watched it navigate the invisible currents. The probe emerged unscathed on the other side. Zar-El's features shifted in what Sarah had learned was an expression of amazement. "How?" they asked. "Our most advanced quantum computers couldn't find these passages. Your computers were looking for empty space," Sarah explained. "We're listening for harmony. In human music, silence is just as important as sound. The safe passages aren't where the gravitational waves are absent, they're where the waves harmonize." The breakthrough energized both teams. The aliens began converting more of their sensor data into audio formats, while Earth's musicians learned to hear the patterns of space itself. Traditional musical knowledge from cultures around the world proved invaluable. African drumming patterns helped predict gravitational pulse frequencies, while Chinese tonal systems mapped perfectly to wave interactions. "We've been studying the stars for millennia through mathematics," Sarah told a reporter during a brief break. "But we've also been studying universal patterns through music for just as long. Sometimes the most sophisticated understanding comes through art as much as science." The alien fleet provided a stark reminder of their deadline. Every few hours, another ship would report power systems approaching critical levels. They were running out of time. "We need to finish mapping the safe route soon," Zar-El warned. "Some of our ships carrying young ones are showing signs of life support strain." Sarah looked at her assembled team of musicians and scientists, all working together in an unprecedented collaboration. They had found a way to hear the music of gravity itself, but now they needed to compose a symphony that would guide 300 ships to safety. "Gather everyone," she announced. "It's time to conduct the greatest concert in human history." As the team prepared for their most ambitious effort yet, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity's first major contribution to galactic civilization wouldn't come from advanced technology, but from something as fundamental as our ability to find harmony in chaos. The next phase would be even more challenging. They had to teach the aliens how to hear the music of the cosmos for themselves. The symphony solution. The NASA Space Center in Houston had become the unlikely home of what the press was calling the cosmic orchestra. In the main control room, screens showing orbital trajectories and power readings shared space with musical visualization software. The room thrummed with the transformed sound of gravitational waves, no longer chaotic, but organized into comprehensible patterns. "Think of it like a river system," Sarah explained to the assembled alien representatives who had managed to reach Earth via long-range communication pods. "Each gravitational current has its own voice. When they meet, they either create harmony or discord. We're looking for the harmonies." The alien scientists, their holographic forms flickering slightly, watched in fascination as human musicians worked alongside physicists. An elderly jazz pianist, Dr. Marcus Thompson, had proved particularly adept at predicting gravitational wave interactions. "Jazz is all about understanding how different voices can work together," he explained, his fingers dancing across a keyboard modified to control gravitational mapping software. "Sometimes the most beautiful passages come from what seems like chaos." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Li Wei, a young Chinese graduate student, had been studying traditional Beijing opera when she noticed something familiar in the gravitational data. "These wave patterns," she said, pointing to a particularly complex intersection, "they're following similar rules to the tonal systems in classical Chinese music." Sarah and her team quickly integrated this insight into their models. The holographic display of the gravitational maze transformed, revealing hidden patterns that had eluded even the aliens' quantum computers. "We've mapped approximately 60% of the safe corridors," Dr. Wong announced, his eyes tired but excited. "But mapping isn't enough. We need to teach the alien ships how to hear these patterns for themselves. If anything changes during their journey." "We've thought of that," Sarah interrupted, gesturing to a new piece of equipment being wheeled into the room. It looked like a cross between a synthesizer and a navigation computer. "We're calling it the harmonic bridge." The device was the result of a collaboration between musicians, engineers, and physicists from 20 different countries. It could translate gravitational wave data into musical patterns in real time, allowing pilots to literally hear the safe paths through space. "Your ship sensors can detect the gravitational waves," Sarah explained to the alien representatives. "We're just changing how that data is presented. Instead of relying purely on visual displays and computer analyses, your pilots will learn to navigate by ear." The aliens were skeptical at first. Their civilization had evolved beyond what they considered primitive sensory navigation. But desperation breeds openness to new ideas. "We'll test it with another probe," Zarel suggested, their crystalline features showing what Sarah had learned to recognize as cautious hope. The test began. As the probe entered the gravitational maze, its sensor data was fed through the harmonic bridge. The room filled with an ethereal melody, the sound of space itself, transformed into music. When the probe approached dangerous turbulence, the harmony would shift, becoming discordant. Safe passages were marked by clear, resonant tones. The probe made it through a particularly treacherous section that had previously been impassable. The alien scientists were stunned. "This is unprecedented," one of them admitted. "We had assumed that advanced civilization meant moving beyond primitive sensory input. But you've shown us that sometimes the oldest methods are the most reliable." Training began immediately. Human musicians worked with alien pilots, teaching them to recognize the patterns that would guide them to safety. It was like teaching a new form of music, but one where lives hung in the balance. Listen to the underlying rhythm, Maya instructed a group of alien navigators. That deep pulse. It's your anchor. The higher harmonies will guide you through the currents, but always return to that bass note. The aliens proved to be quick studies. Their civilization's dedication to pattern recognition, once confined to computer algorithms, adapted surprisingly well to musical interpretation. As the training progressed, something unexpected happened. The aliens began to share stories of their own ancient musical traditions, long forgotten in their rush toward technological advancement. Some of their oldest navigation techniques, they realized, had been based on principles similar to what humans were now teaching them. Perhaps, Zarel mused during one session, in our quest to advance beyond our physical limitations, we forgot that those very limitations could be sources of wisdom. Sarah watched as human and alien worked together, finding common ground in the universal language of harmony. They weren't just solving a crisis anymore, they were building bridges between civilizations through something as fundamental as music. The day of the rescue attempt was approaching quickly. Every ship would need to navigate the gravitational maze precisely, following the harmonious paths human musicians had helped map. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented, a space rescue mission conducted like a symphony, with 300 ships moving in harmony through the music of gravity itself. Ready the first movement, Sarah announced, as the final preparations began. It's time to show the galaxy what harmony really means. Conducting the cosmos. Mission Control had been transformed into what the technicians were calling the Galactic Concert Hall. The vast circular room now featured a central podium where Sarah stood, surrounded by screens showing each ship's position and their corresponding harmonic signatures. The gravitational waves sang through specialized speakers, creating a complex spatial audio environment that mapped the invisible dangers surrounding the alien fleet. First movement begins in 30 minutes, Sarah announced. The rescue mission had been organized like a symphony in 4 movements, each representing a different phase of the journey through the gravitational maze. The alien ships had been divided into groups of 75, each following a different harmonious path that human musicians had identified. These paths wove through the gravitational currents like melodies through a musical score. Group 1, prepare for initial movement, Dr. Wong called out. The first 75 ships, carrying the youngest and most vulnerable of the alien refugees, would lead the way. Zarel's voice came through the communications system, tinged with both hope and anxiety. Our pilots report ready. The harmonic bridges are operational on all ships. Sarah took a deep breath and raised her hands. In this moment, she wasn't just a scientist, she was a conductor, and the galaxy itself was her orchestra. Begin transmission of the guidance harmony. The room filled with sound. The base layer was a deep, steady pulse representing the main gravitational current. Above it, complex harmonies mapped the safe corridors. Warning tones would sound if any ship strayed too close to dangerous turbulence. The first ships began to move. On the main screen, their progress was tracked both visually and musically. Each ship added its own note to the growing symphony as it navigated the maze. The alien pilots, newly trained in this unprecedented form of navigation, followed the harmonious paths with increasing confidence. First obstacle approaching, Maya announced from her station. The gravitational waves ahead formed a particularly treacherous knot of intersecting currents. In the audio representation, it sounded like a crash of discordant notes. Sarah adjusted the guidance harmony, emphasizing the subtle undertones that marked the safe passage. The ships responded, their movements becoming more precise. They were learning to dance to Earth's unique song. Group 1 has cleared the first major barrier, Dr. Wong reported, relief evident in his voice. 75 ships, all showing green status. But the challenge was far from over. As the second group prepared to move, sensors detected a shift in the gravitational patterns. The maze was changing. Pattern shift detected in Sector 7, an analyst called out. The harmony representing that section began to shift, threatening to dissolve into chaos. This was what they had prepared for. Sarah turned to Marcus Thompson, who was already adjusting his modified keyboard. "Jazz time, Doctor," she said with a slight smile. Marcus's fingers flew across the keys, improvising new harmonies to match the changing gravitational patterns. The alien pilots, thanks to their training, recognized the shifts and adjusted their courses accordingly. What could have been disaster became merely another movement in the cosmic symphony. Second group entering the maze, Maya reported. First group continuing on projected course. Hour after hour, the rescue operation continued. Each ship's journey added new layers to the complex harmony-filling mission control. The aliens were not just following the human-created paths now, they were beginning to sense the patterns themselves, making minute adjustments based on their growing understanding of space's musical nature. "It's beautiful," Zar-El commented during a brief pause between movements. "We had forgotten that navigation could be an art as well as a science. Your species has reminded us of something precious we lost." The operation wasn't without its tense moments. Several ships reported power fluctuations, requiring quick adjustments to their courses. A sudden surge in gravitational activity forced one group to hold position while Marcus and his team composed a new safe passage on the fly. But as the hours turned into days, ship after ship emerged safely from the maze. The harmony of their movement was unlike anything humanity had ever attempted, a symphony played out across the stars, with lives hanging on every note. Final group preparing for entry, Sarah announced on the third day. Her voice was hoarse from hours of directing, but her eyes shone with determination. The last 75 ships, including Zar-El's command vessel, were about to begin their journey. As they watched the final movement unfold, Sarah realized they had done more than just rescue a stranded fleet. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in advanced technology, but in our ability to find harmony in the apparent chaos of the universe. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most profound solutions come not from the most advanced computers, but from remembering how to listen to the music that had always been there. "Last movement," she whispered, raising her hands one final time. "Let's bring them home." A new song in the galaxy. 6 months after the successful rescue of the alien fleet, the United Nations Assembly Hall hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from 12 different galactic civilizations had come to Earth, not to share advanced technology or discuss complex trade agreements, but to learn about music. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, looking out at an audience that included humans, crystalline beings like Zar-El, gaseous entities contained in specialized chambers, and other forms of life she was still struggling to comprehend. The universal translators hummed softly, converting her words into dozens of different languages and communication formats. "The rescue mission taught us something profound," she began. "In our rush to advance, we sometimes forget the fundamental patterns that connect everything in the universe. Music isn't just entertainment, it's one of the oldest ways we have of understanding these patterns." The massive screen behind her showed recordings from the rescue operation, now famous throughout the galaxy as the Symphony of Salvation. The harmonious movement of 300 ships through the gravitational maze had become a symbol of humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. "Since the rescue," Sarah continued, "we've discovered that musical analysis can be applied to numerous cosmic phenomena. Solar flares, planetary formations, even the movement of dark matter, all follow patterns that can be better understood through harmonic principles." In the months following the rescue, Earth had received numerous requests for collaboration. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations, which had once dismissed humanity as primitive, were now sending their brightest minds to study what they called the Earth method, the combination of art and science that had succeeded where pure technology had failed. Zar-El, now serving as Earth's primary liaison to the galactic community, stepped forward to speak. "Our civilization lost something in our pursuit of pure technological advancement," they admitted. "We forgot that understanding comes in many forms. Humanity reminded us that sometimes the oldest ways of seeing, or rather, hearing, the universe are the most profound. The changes went beyond scientific advancement. Earth's music had spread throughout the galaxy, with alien civilizations discovering new ways to adapt human musical principles to their own forms of expression. A group of gaseous beings had become particularly fond of jazz, their color patterns shifting in improvisational rhythms. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed advancement itself. The assumption that progress meant moving away from primitive, sensory experiences was being challenged. Humanity had proved that true advancement meant integrating all forms of understanding, from the most technical to the most artistic. "We're establishing the Galactic Harmony Institute," Sarah announced to the assembled delegates. "A place where artists and scientists from all civilizations can work together to explore the musical nature of the universe." The project had already yielded results. A team of human musicians working with alien quantum physicists had developed new ways to predict supernovae by analyzing their harmonic patterns. Another group had applied musical theory to improve faster-than-light navigation. As Sarah concluded her presentation, she gestured to an unusual instrument at the center of the stage. It looked like a cross between a grand piano and a stellar cartography system. "This is the universal harmonograph," she explained. "It can translate any cosmic phenomenon into music, and any music into its corresponding cosmic patterns." She sat at the instrument and began to play. The notes filled the hall, but they were more than just sound. Through specialized sensors, the audience could experience the music as gravitational waves, electromagnetic patterns, and quantum fluctuations, all working together in perfect harmony. The alien delegates watched in amazement as the music painted pictures of galaxy formation, stellar nurseries, and the dance of binary stars. This was how humanity saw, and heard, the universe. "We don't claim to be the most advanced civilization," Sarah said as the last notes faded away. "But we've never lost touch with the fundamental rhythms of existence. In teaching others to hear these rhythms, we found our place in the galaxy." The gathering concluded with an unprecedented performance, human musicians playing alongside alien artists, each bringing their own understanding of universal harmony to create something entirely new. As the music soared through the hall, Sarah realized that humanity had done more than save a stranded fleet. They had helped the galaxy remember something it had forgotten in its rush toward advancement, that the most profound understanding comes not from abandoning our fundamental ways of perceiving the universe, but from elevating them to new heights. The greatest symphony in human history had become a new beginning, as Earth took its place among the stars not as the most technologically advanced civilization, but as the one that remembered how to hear the music of the cosmos itself. The galaxy had gained a new song, and humanity, once considered primitive, had become its conductor.